Hello everybody, my name is Matthew Manning. I am one of the UK SEs and I have with me today Ashley Musk. How are you doing today, Ash?
I'm fine, thank you, Matthew. How are you today?
Yeah, really good, thank you. So we have an interesting session for everybody today. We're going to spend a little bit of time going over one of our relatively new technologies, something that we had about a year ago called Harmony Remote Access. Some people may know this as Odo. It was an acquisition that we did sometime last year. And we'd like to just break down some of the basic details of this technology and how you can set it up, and hopefully a couple of use cases of where it might be useful in your environment. So, Ash, we can head over with you.
Sure thing. Yeah, I had a couple of slides just to make sure that everyone's on the same page. We can talk about the use cases and some of the powerful different scenarios that we can deploy this technology in. So I guess the main one is we all know remote access. It's been a huge part of the industry. Everyone's used to configuring site-to-site, client-to-site VPNs, but this gives us a whole new take on it and allows us to do things in a far more granular fashion. I guess in terms of use cases, we obviously know about our business users needing to access corporate data. That stands to reason. Otherwise, they're not going to be able to do much work. But now the paradigm has slightly changed and we need more and more people to be able to access these resources. Potentially we didn't have engineering teams coming in and building in-house applications for us 5 years ago. And now these guys are going to need access to resources, potentially IP, but we might need to wrap some controls around that so that we can monitor what they're doing. Additionally, we're going to see customer support people coming in. These people would, might need access to customer records. They might need to update CRMs, but we potentially, again, we're going to want to limit what they can do. We're not necessarily going to want a Wild West type access for them to just have it unfiltered when they're on the network. And additionally, more and more, we're seeing these third-party contractors come in. So, this might be vendor support. This could be DevOps guys. But these people are going to need to come in, work with our access, and they pose potentially a different challenge as well. So they're going to be coming in from a device that we, or the IT teams, have no control over. How do we know what they're doing when they touch our corporate resources?
So I think in many ways, this is something that we've seen for years. People talk about remote access like it started at the beginning of 2020. We all know that really isn't the case. We've been deploying remote access solutions for our customers for years. I remember very close to when I started the industry, an SSL portal was the big thing, and every vendor had a different technologies. Checkpoints back then was called Connectra, and nowadays that has changed into our mobile access blade, obviously supporting more modern smartphone devices as well as traditional sort of browsers. So remote access really hasn't been something that is new. So the major thing that's changed is not so much that people are remote and at home, but actually that the place where we locate our infrastructure is massively changed. Before, people would have a single centralized data center or comms room, whereas nowadays people are using multiple places to host their resources. This could be anything from cloud-based applications to having multiple geolocations where infrastructure is placed, or even the consumption of SaaS-based solutions as well. And that's the area we really, really need to change. So Ash, when people do fragment their infrastructure behind the scenes, can you think of how people historically would do this?
So I guess people might be fragmenting infrastructure for a number of reasons. I guess with cloud providers coming to the fore, we're seeing resources being hosted up by these hyperscalers, or potentially also in private cloud. But particular regulations might mean people want to, or have a reason to hold this data on premise or in a data center for some reason still. So although I would completely agree that the more and more infrastructure is fragmented, there is still going to be the odd case when we need to get to those legacy applications that can't be moved for whatever reason.
And I think when people do end up with a multi-site location for their infrastructure, there's two ways that the network connections would have been done in the past. I think originally site-to-site VPN was a really big one. However, that is typically can be quite complicated, particularly if you're working with multiple third-party providers to get that remote access VPN. The second option was just to simply connect these up through some form of leased line. So that was a layer 3 network connection between all the different environments. But again, that typically tends to be quite expensive. So with this particular solution, we believe that we've come up with a way, a much easier, lightweight way of actually connecting your infrastructure together without having to rely on complex, potentially unstable site-to-site VPNs and expensive lease lines. And hopefully this next diagram will explain how we achieve this.
What we're looking to achieve here is we're effectively looking to separate our control plane from our identity proxy. So if we can see here, we've got our various data centers, and these could be, hosted tightly together, or they could be disparately spread around the world. So our VPC, we might have some resources up in here, and we're going to have, we can see that we've got some sort of like a Jenkins server and some additional stuff on premise, and it looks like another cloud resource here. So traditionally, we would have had to probably get a gateway or some sort of networking device that could establish an IPsec or a GRE tunnel back to another interoperable device. The Harmony Connect remote access play allows us to kind of flip this on its head slightly. And rather than deploying expensive gateways at each location, we can simply deploy a lightweight Docker container. This is going to then establish a connection back to the SASE portal. So effectively, we can then give someone access to these resources without exposing them to the big bad internet.
I think that's the big change. Anyone who isn't familiar with the world of Docker and containerization, these tend to be very quick, easy to deploy tools. For example, our container, it will typically take no more than about a minute or two to download that from the internet and install that inside your environment. Once that's installed, it will talk home to our Harmony Connect Edge, which is where this is like our mothership, where everything kind of communicates into. And this is, like I say, it's incredibly quick and lightweight to deploy. And it really removes that complexities of having to do lots of complicated configurations between sites, because everybody knows, or every container knows where to connect to this. And then the users can connect into that platform and have an experience that is very similar to what they're kind of used to. A web page that provides a list of resources that they can access. And unknown to them, they may click on one link, it takes them off to a resource that lives in the data center, click another link that goes up to Azure, AWS, all these different environments, or in the example we're about to see, Ash's house. So it doesn't really matter where these devices are deployed. The user is just going to have the same experience wherever, really. So great stuff. So that's the theory done. So I'm just going to give Ash a moment there to flick on to something a bit more technical.
So this is, for those of you that haven't interacted with this portal before, this is the Infinity portal. And this is effectively Checkpoint's one-stop shop for security. We've got a plethora of applications hosted in here now. So it doesn't matter if you want to work with our, our firewall as a service, with our advanced EDR, or with our CASB technologies. All of this is now driven from a single portal. So it's really simplifying the life of our security administrators. But as we've already kind of suggested today we wanted to focus on the remote access capabilities of Harmony Connect. So this is the kind of landing page for when you log into Harmony Connect. And as you can see, it does more than just a remote access application. This is effectively Checkpoint SASE play, and we can secure a number of SD-WAN type environments or just disparate branches here. So I figured today it would be a good opportunity to go through, and we can actually deploy some resources and connect them up to the SASE portal, and we can show how the experience of our users interacting with these applications. Just so everyone's aware of the architecture we're going to be using today. So I've got a PlusNet router sitting in my house and a Checkpoint SMB gateway on the desk next to me. Now both of these will give out a web portal, and the Checkpoint device will also give out an SSH session. So I can set these up as in the SASE portal so that our external users can come in and interact with these via the Docker that we're about to deploy onto my laptop. So if it's okay with you, Matthew, we'll go ahead and we'll start deploying the data center, and we can and then provision some applications into the portal. So the first thing we need to do is we need to add a logical data center. So don't worry, this doesn't need to be a physical data center, as I don't have one in my house. We'll just need to give this a tag, and this is going to be the effective logical data center for our applications. So I've just created my data center. So UKSE has been created, and I've now got a Docker command, which is going to give me, this is how I'm going to deploy the connector, which is going to facilitate my internal applications being connected up to that SASE portal, so my external users have a point to enter. So I'll take this off and just drop it onto a notepad on another screen. Now I've already got Docker for desktop installed on my machine. So this, that's that's not going to be something that we would need to go through, but this doesn't just support Windows machines. For those of you that have worked with Docker before, you'll know it's incredibly easy to get it up and running, and we can install it on a wide array of operating systems, not only Linux.
So typical deployments of this would be to create a Ubuntu operating system inside a virtual machine, and then install Docker onto that environment if you haven't already got a Docker instance. However, if you are running some sort of Kubernetes environment, then you can just paste that command in and it will download it in a few seconds. Docker for Windows is just a really quick and easy way of just testing this technology without the need to install like a secondary operating system. And it's great for these types of demos. But like in production, people would normally install Docker inside of like a Linux-based operating system for their connection.
So the next step, I'm just going to run Docker PS to just confirm that that's successfully deployed. So as we can see, I've got a connector which has been up for about 42 seconds. So that's the one that we've just deployed together. So the next step we'll need to do here is now that we've got a Docker deployed, we'll need we'll need to define a group that's going to be able to access the resources that our connector has access to. So I've defined the UK SE data center. So we'll also define the UK SE group now. This is where some of the zero trust modeling starts to come in. So by default, my group has no users and access to no applications. We'll need to explicitly define who is going to have access to these groups, as well as which applications this group can access. So I'm just going to add myself into this initially, and we haven't added the applications yet, so we need to come back to revisit this once our applications have been provisioned in the trusted application section of the portal. So adding applications is going to be real easy. We've got about 5 options for types of applications that we can integrate with. So it doesn't matter to us if it's a web portal, an SSH session, RDP, a tunnel, or a database app. Now, 2 of the applications that we're setting up today are going to be web apps. So we'll do those first. So initially we'll set up the router. And we'll give it the local address. I'll define the port that we're going to connect over, or the protocol that we're going to connect over. And I'll also need to define the data center that this is connected into. So as it stands to reason, we've just defined the UKSE site together, or the data center. So we'll hook this into that so that they're connected. Again, so if we look at who's authorized on this application, at the minute it's no one. So here I could add in single users, or I could start to add in groups as well to interact with these applications. What the UKSE group in here again? And we'll add an SSH session as well. So here we'll define whether we want to set up a managed account or whether it will be transparent one-time passwords for the user every time they log on. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to define the credentials that I've got already set up on my SSH account. Admin, and we'll just pop the password in here. So I think the next thing to do would just be go check out the end user portal, just so we can understand the typical sort of flow for an end user interacting with this. Now, as we can see, I've got some applications added previously, but if I move down to the site that we just defined together.
You've got to pick the big demo one that's got everything on it. So loads of stuff in there.
Loads of SEs obviously keen to start playing with this really cool technology. So as we can see, I've only got one application at the moment. So that's by design. If we recall, I haven't actually explicitly added the permissions into the SSH resource. So until that's done, no one will be able to access it. Now, this is part of where that zero trust modeling comes in. We need to explicitly allow people access to a resource, or they're just not going to be able to interact with it. So I'm just going to come out of full screen for a second. So if we can see, I'm now connected to the PlusNet resource again, only I'm now connected over this address rather than the local address in my house. So, and we've achieved all of this without exposing this to the big bad internet, as I said before, and all without giving this an external IP address. Now, I'm going to need to go back into the portal, just because we'll need to define the permissions onto the SSH application that we just set up together. So I'll hop into here. I can edit the permissions. We'll find our UKSE group. Now, if I navigate back to the portal and refresh, just navigate back to my UKSE site, we can see how quickly that change has taken hold, and now I'm able to access this SSH resource. So the flow for this is going to be slightly different, as it stands to reason, because obviously we can't launch this SSH session inside a web portal. So now I'm going to establish a connection to the SSH resource that we've just set up together. So handily, all of the information I need is going to be presented in this little wizard here. So I'll take the SSH command, and I'm just going to plug this into my PuTTY session now. So we can see the checkpoint ASCII art, so we know it's working. I'm just going to take the one-time password from here as well, and I'll simply plumb that into the to my SSH session. And voila, I'm now completely clientlessly accessing my SSH resource. And now I'm doing this from the same device that we set it up from. But if we imagine, I could be a third-party contractor coming in now. I could be, potentially my corporate device is broken. I need to access it for a critical business project. I'm accessing it from a personal device. And this is some of the flexibility that we mentioned on that initial slide, that it gives us, lots and lots of options around the ways that we can provision remote access.
I mean, I think if we stop and think about that for a moment and think about what we've just done in the short period of time we've had. So in no more than about 15 minutes, you've gone from a site that has no external access, no one can come into it, to a safe, secure web portal that somebody can access a web page, which could be a payment system, it could be your payroll, it could be an intranet, it could be anything you want it to be. At the same time, you've also opened up access for developers and sysadmins to access system resources such as Linux servers over SSH, and all of that has been done in this incredibly small time frame.
Yeah, I've got to say, this is now my personal preferable way to do remote access now. It just takes far less time, and I believe it's far more flexible option for us.
That's great, Ash. Really great to see how quick and easy we can set that up. I know as a lazy administrator, I don't want to type my password in every time, and I really don't want to save that as a cache file on my machine. I know we have a really great feature which allows the user to generate their own client-side SSH certificate and allows them, when they're using an SSH connection, to authenticate into Harmony Connect with their personal client certificate, and that gives them seamless access to their backend SSH sessions. So if we could just quickly go through that, that'd be fantastic.
Sure thing, Matthew. So just so people are aware, if you need to pull down your SSH key, you can either regenerate it or download it from here. Now, I've already got mine set up, so this should be pretty seamless. It's just going to be a case of us tabbing over to PuTTY and just logging in using the cert. So as we can see, I've already got in my saved sessions within PuTTY, we've already got this set up from a previous session. So to connect, it's just going to be a case of just using this session. Now, the one part that we will need to add here is we will need to just plumb in that username. So if we copy that UK_SE_SSH, just paste that into the login window here, and voila. We're now in just without needing that second stage authentication, just because we've already authenticated using the certificate. So we don't need to use these passwords, and we're moving in a far easier fashion for our sysadmins, as Matthew said. and less chance of leaked passwords as well.
Absolutely, that's great. Thank you so much. I know that's a feature I use all the time. I use a third-party tool called mRemote, and in there I just have a list of bookmarks, and I can just double-click on any of them, and bam, straight into my my Linux server with no interruptions and stuff, which is great, and it's still safe and secure, which is fantastic. So I have seen a big uptake in customers' interest, very specifically in the public sector and in finance worlds. One of the key features that they love about this is not only that it can provide access to really, really sensitive backend infrastructures, so web pages where medical environments can, medical staff can access patient records and update patient records, finance organizations where they can provide very sensitive platforms to their users. And in the background, we have a forensic, I call it a forensic tool, but a really detailed logging system. So Ash, if we could just quickly go through that very briefly, that would be great.
Yeah, sure thing, Matthew. So I'd completely agree with you. I think the login and forensics in this platform is really, really powerful. So just need to load this up, and we can see some of the SSH sessions that I've just made here. So I guess we can check one of these out. So yeah, here where we can start to have a look at some of the powerful kind of logging and audit mechanisms that we have built into this platform. So here we can see that my session where I tried to log in. I think this was the one where I failed to get the password correctly, so it won't be a particularly interesting one. But still, I think it sort of paints a picture that we get very categorical audit logging when we're using this platform.
And this extends not just to SSH sessions, this also extends to remote desktop as well. So you can see a full video recording of what that user is doing on their server at the back end. Again, for auditing, for really, really stringent compliant environments, this is an absolute fantastic tool, allowing us to give real actual live recordings of what those system administrators are doing on their systems. And for many of our customers, that is incredibly important for them, that they can have that level of visibility. So that's really, really powerful tool. Thank you, Ash. So thank you everybody so much for tuning in today. We know that these sessions have been received really well, and we're hoping that people have been enjoying them. If you have any further ideas and things you would like to see in the future, please pop them in the chats in the comments section below. This is currently being published on YouTube, so if you would like to follow and tune into more videos, you can subscribe to this channel, and we will be sending out updates to emails to when these things are occurring, along with our normal channel emails that will come directly from your local SE. If you wish to trial this technology and would like to know a little bit more information about this, connect with your local reseller or your local SE if you are a reseller, and we can help you trial this technology. And again, if you're a reseller, we can set up your own custom portals so you can set up your own trial with your customers. We're very flexible in the ways that we can do this for you. So I hope everybody's found something useful in this session today. And thank you everybody for watching. And thank you, Ash, for your help today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Stay safe.
Thanks. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.